Jim, Rowan, how you going? 21st of March, 2021. Back at it again on a rainy day. And we've got more New Japan Cup to cover, of course. I'm going to go through the second round and the quarterfinals on this one, and then I will hopefully be back again very quickly to finish off the tournament with the semi-finals and final. But plenty of content for today. I do have a bit of news as well. Actually, I guess I should start with thanking... I ended the last podcast with thanks to a few people that had reached out and given me some constructive criticism to do with this little project I've got going on here. And then there was one other person that commented a bit later and said something to the effect of, oh yeah, I remember seeing this posted somewhere else, and as soon as I saw the YouTube picture, I just clicked straight out of it. Which is fair enough. It's pretty ugly. It's pretty basic. That's kind of what I like about it, is that it's really pathetic looking. And the podcast is called Wrestle Me Weekly, which is also, like weak wrestling. Also kind of pathetic. I think it just goes with the mood. But it did prompt me to once again look into my audio-only options. And I found... What did I find? What's it called? Anchor. And Anchor made it easy. This isn't an ad. This is just... I threw everything up on... I should pull it up, actually. Anchor.fm Jim-Rowan ROHAN Wrestle Me Weekly. There it is. All of the episodes are up there, and I will continue to upload them there, and then they appear on Spotify. They're supposed to appear on Google Podcasts, but it's not up yet. Google takes their time with that. Radio Public, is that up yet? Radio Public. If you've got the Radio Public app, you can listen to me talk about this stuff. If you have Breaker, that's another one. Breaker. And then there's Pocket Casts. Open in Pocket Casts. I don't even know what half these things are, people. But Anchor made it easy, so I really appreciate that. I just uploaded it in one place, and then they just kept sending me emails. Hey, we've uploaded it here now. I was, oh, okay. Great. And I think it looks a bit better because, look, it was constructive criticism. I get it. I get that you go on YouTube, you expect to see something. But as I said to that person, this was only ever really, particularly, in the opening stages of it, my intention was only ever really to be doing it audio only. So, yeah, in any case. Oh, the rain. The rains are here. So I just wanted to mention that. If you would prefer not to watch this on YouTube and watch it on an actual podcast app or website, then there you go. Spotify, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Breaker, soon to be Google Podcasts. And Anchor itself is a place you can do it. Listen to this. So there you go. Like I said, continuous progression, moving up in the world. Appreciate you if you're along for the ride. Speaking of which, Soham, the comments from last week, appreciate talking to you. Appreciate you pointing out the curl toe boots. I thought that Khan wore those. I was right. I don't think I saw any of his Rev Pro stuff though, so I feel like he must have brought them in to New Japan for maybe his first little while, like maybe just his first couple of weeks he was wearing them, something like that. But yeah, appreciate the kind words as well. So I hope I'm saying that right. But enough of this waffling. Let's get into it. I have to go back to the 11th, 10 days ago, for the first of the second round matches in the New Japan Cup. But of course, I will also go through what happens on the undercards. Just briefly, I don't want this to be as long as last week's one. I don't want to send you all to sleep. I'd like you to listen to all of it. So, it started with Yoda Suji, David Finley versus Yoshihashi, Tomihiro Ishii. Once again, this is the 11th of March. Item Ihome. Ihime. That's probably better off having not attempted that, actually. But that's where they are on the 11th of March. Yoda Suji, David Finley, Yoshihashi, Tomihiro Ishii. And in this one, Ishii hits Suji with a lariat to keep him down after a lengthier than usual struggle in this one. And Finley and after this match, that kept Suji down. That was the finish, the lariat. And then Finley and Yoshi sit cross-legged facing each other on the apron, trying to communicate. It's not quite the aggressive face-off or square-off that you often see, but they're nice guys. After the match, Suji, he was talking about losing his New Japan Cup match, but so did Naito, so he must be no occupado again. He won't stop asking for that match, he says. Finley is mad, again, and in a contrived way, as always. He shouts about his success after losing a match, again. He's meant to be a babyface, but he's such a whiner. And then Yoshi comes in calm and he compliments Finley for losing some weight. I don't think that was meant as a backhanded compliment either. I think he was just saying, hey, you look good, kid. But he tells him, I've changed too, so get ready. The next match was Yujiro, Jado, and Bad Luck Vale versus Uemura, Honma, and Kojima. And a pimp juice ends Uemura's night. But none of these guys are in the second round of the Cup, so we'll just keep moving here. Funny, Kojima recalls a large earthquake. I'm just... Sorry, I don't mean the earthquake is funny. It just is something that returned last night. I'm not going to go through the semi-final stuff. I did watch it, but I won't mention it again. There was an earthquake. But this one was a big one. Kojima recalls a large earthquake from 10 years ago. That was not funny. And back then, he was still fighting for New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's proud to still be here and is as energetic as ever. Homer is sad for Uemura to lose in his hometown, and Uemura is, of course, too. He says someday he will return as a dominating champion. Uemura. Bushi, Naito, Shingo, and Sonata took on Sho, Okada, Goto, and Nagata. Bushi takes a shock arrow for the finish. And them trading pins makes last night make a bit more sense, just because, I mean, you've got to go all the way back to the last podcast, of course, for this, but in that one, it was pretty similar. Actually, it might have been the exact same match. And I think I made the comment that I wasn't sure why why Bushi pinned Sho, but that's the reason. They're trading pins here. Obviously, kind of turning up a rivalry going into the Best of Super Juniors. Bushi says afterwards he won't let Sho do that again. Goto, you piece of crap, is how Shingo starts. He says he hit that Ushigoroshi again. He does not want to feel it again. He will hit Goto with it instead. Sho's happy to get a win in his hometown, and he wants to continue to steal the spotlight for the juniors. Nagata didn't think he would get the chance to face Sonata again so soon, but he is clearly excited about it. I feel like I probably should have set this up with the lineups, but just so we kind of know where we're headed with all these rivalries. So, real quick, okay, let's do it. Great Khan versus Toriyano. Jeff Cobb versus Evil. Kenta versus Suzuki. Shingo versus Goto. Sonata versus Nagata. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Osprey. And Yoshihashi versus Finley, and Jay White versus Tanahashi is the final second round match. So that's what we're heading toward, and of course that's what's being set up in these undercard matches in mostly quite subtle and rather inconsequential ways, but we're going through it anyway. So the next match was Hanare Juice Tanahashi versus Chase Owens, Kenta, and Jay White, and in this one Owens taps to the Texas Cloverleaf from Tanahashi, of course, and I guess he hopes that Tanahashi doesn't want to travel to Texas because he certainly earned a shot at his title, that Texas title is I forget who said it now. I think it was Finley mentioned in one of his post-fight interviews that he believes that you have to go to Texas and fight for that belt in Texas in order for it to be a title change or, a title match in the first place. So, and the fact that Finley isn't interested in doing that, it kind of suggests that Tanahashi, who isn't even sold on the title he holds now, probably isn't going to be going to the trouble of heading to Texas. So I think Owens is safe for now. But after this match, Jay remembers the Dragon Screw. He's like, oh, it's been a while since I've taken one of those. He thinks Tanahashi might look up to him as a role model, and that he has, this is Jay White on Tanahashi, has let his body slip a bit. And he tried grabbing his love handles. He's having a laugh about that, trying to give him a pinch. He would be happy to help Tanahashi with his training and his diet. Kenta makes fun of the fat cameraman. Oh, geez, some fat shaming in these interviews. Makes fun of the fat cameraman and Okada's speech troubles some more. He says that he has been trying to annoy Suzuki on Twitter, but all he posts about is business. His business. I think it's got a fashion shop. When I was in Japan, I went looking for it, but I couldn't find it. I think it was, I don't know, I missed the sign. I ended up walking into some park of, I think it was like an apartment block, and it was not for public access, and I got a security guard coming up to me telling me to get lost. I'm just looking for Suzuki's store. I'd like to buy a hat. Anyway, Kenta goes on, his non sequitur is a surprisingly sincere message to those affected by the earthquake a decade ago. And then Tanahashi says he'll make his way back to the top with the Never title, and Juice plugs his tag title match coming up in Impact. That brings us to the first of the second round matches. Great-O Khan took on Toru Yano. And in this one I picked Khan. Oh yes, my picks. Oh yes, my picks. The thing is, I don't think I really made proper picks. I did write them down, but then I realized, because at the end of last one I was like, oh, I should go through my picks for the second round, but I hadn't written them down, and it was already a long podcast, so I was like, forget it. And then I realized I'd already watched a couple of the first matches. Like back then, I'd already watched this match, for example, but I wrote it down on one of the boards I post on, so I did have a prediction. I had picked Khan. Anyway, they yell at each other first as the two best yellers in New Japan. Yano grabs a roll of tape. Khan allows his hands to be taped behind his back. They yell at each other some more. Yano takes off a turnbuckle pad, takes a swing, but Khan ducks it and breaks free of the tape. So Yano runs away. More yelling. Khan tries luring Yano back into the ring for a match to begin. That'd be nice. He offers a pin, like a free pin, just lies down. But then later he picks up the King of Pro Wrestling trophy, and that's what finally works. Gets Yano back to the ring. Khan gets him in a head and arm choke for quite a while. He likes that one, the head and arm choke. And Yano fights back with some wrestling techniques and tries a few of his more technical pins. Khan locks onto the face claw, but Yano powers out, then tricks Khan out of the ring. He ties Khan's long hair plait to the barricade, and in order to escape, I don't know why he had scissors on him, but Khan had... Well, I mean, you know what? It doesn't make... It's not completely nonsense, Because if you're ever going to bring scissors to a match, it'd be a Yano match. Especially because he does like using the tape. So it's actually... I mean, the referee should have picked it up before the match. But, when he was doing his pat down. But still, it's not completely insane for Khan to coincidentally have scissors when his hair plait is tied to the barricade. So he takes him out and he cuts his plait. He just cuts off a big chunk of his hair in order to get back into the ring. And of course he's enraged by this, but Yano, I don't remember what the referee was doing, not that it matters. Yano gives him a swift kick to the junk, rolls him up and pins him to advance. So Toru Yano advances to face the winner of the next match here, Jeff Cobb and Evil. And Khan has given himself a haircut. And after the match is understandably mad. He's got his severed lock in his hands. Yano calls this win the power of the King of Pro Wrestling champion. Yes, the power. And then the next match, as stated moments ago, Jeff Cobb versus Evil. Basically in this one, Cobb wants a wrestling match in the ring and Evil wants a brawl anywhere else. And these guys kind of have to be led a bit, I think. Someone's doing something upstairs. So just, I don't know, didn't think it was a very interesting match, to be honest, so we'll run through it. It's funny, because it was here that, similar to how on the last podcast, at the end, I kind of began realizing Jay White might be my favorite wrestler to watch right now. Unfortunately, I think Evil might be my least favorite. He doesn't even do that much cheating in this match, though, but it still isn't much of a interesting match. And it's because, I mean, Evil could be that Makabe role, of the last generation. He could be that bruiser that's up there in the title picture. In the kind of rotation, with a little bit of Undertaker thrown in Evil's case. But I don't really know what they should do with him at this point, other than drop Togo as soon as possible. Or at least just, I mean, it's not necessarily that Togo is bad at what he does or anything. It's just what he does is bad. So if he would stop doing all this, the garrote and just all the interference, I mean, all of it is just not real interesting. Deadlift superplex from Cobb is impressive. He picking up Evil over the turnbuckle. That's pretty cool. He earns a 2 count for that. When Togo does get involved, Cobb fights him off. But then during a spin cycle, Evil grabs the referee and knocks him down, so Togo comes back in with the garrote. And Cobb throws Togo over one shoulder and Evil over the other for a double power slam, another impressive feat of strength. The exposed turnbuckle is really overdone, but after surviving that, Yujiro, who was on commentary, distracts the referee, so Evil can low blow Cobb coming off that exposed turnbuckle and finishes him with everything is Evil. So it's Evil that advances to face Toriyano, and he calls that the power of Bullet Club. So I guess it's going to be the power of the King of Pro Wrestling champion versus the power of Bullet Club. He will win the title for a second straight time, the cup, that means, for the second straight time, and take the title from Bushi, and then he will destroy the IWGP name and make his own title. He says IWGP is a crap name. He will destroy all of New Japan's history. And he looks forward to facing Yano, who he will destroy. Not much of a start, to be honest, but pushing ahead. The 13th in Aichi. Opening match, Toru Yano, Yoshihashi, Tomihiro Ishii versus Gabriel Kid, Yoda Suji, and David Finley. And in this one, Yoshi, he can't even get a young lion to tap to the butterfly lock. So he transitions to a double wrist lock and finishes Kid off that way to win the match. Because he had Kid in it forever. It's just a hold. It's like a rest hold. Anyway, Suji looks back on his campaign to gain a match with Naito, and his lack of success he's led him to an ultimatum. He says he wants Naito at the New Japan Cup final card or he will give up. He says he's watching those Twitter votes tick. That's still his plan. He's got 25,000 left to go on his 55,000 goal. Twitter likes. Kid is not satisfied with losing this match after going 17 minutes with Zack Sabre Jr. in the first round, of course. Pretty good match, that one. And he wants to go back to Shibata's dojo. This guy's all over the place. He wants to go back to Britain and spread wrestling. He wants to stay in Japan and, become someone here as a, get a part of the main roster. He wants to be in the New Japan Cup. He wants to go back to Shibata's dojo in LA. Like, he is all over the place. I guess he just kind of... It's almost kind of like just being in a... I guess it is. I mean, this is his job. But it's like being in just a dead-end job and just almost... Just anything. Just get me out of here. Yeah. All those young lions. I mean, these three. Suji, Amora, and Kid. I mean, it's fair for them to kind of feel like they're pushed up against that glass ceiling right now, and they're really ready for something to happen. Especially because they're just stuck in that New Japan young lion mentality where they have to take the pin. And I don't like that, by the way. I don't really... I mean, I get that it makes it a big deal when they do beat someone. And I kind of guess I get the mentality that the young lions almost, out of respect, kind of have this understanding that they maybe are the... Like, I'm trying to talk in kayfabe. Like, there might be just kind of like a keep the peace, almost willingness to take the fall in a weird kind of culty way. But, just knowing who's going to take the fall before the match, even if it's not an important match, which generally they're not involved in, of course, but I don't know, it's still contrived, and I don't like that. Anyway, we were talking about Suji. He wants to go back... Kid wants to go back to Shibata's dojo. And then Finley feels similarly to his partners. He wants to step up in New Japan, but his way of doing so will be to beat Yoshi. And then Yoshi comes in. He remembers facing Finley when he was a junior, and he's got to beat him again. Khan, Cobb, Osprey, the United Empire versus Doki, Zack, and Taichi. A large part of this match is Osprey against Zack, and that is pretty good stuff. Khan, of course, has now got new hair, a new hairstyle. He's let his hair out now, so it's kind of frizzy like his beard. A bit of a new look. He counters the Doki Choki with the claw, and eventually he hits him with the Eliminator for the win. Zack, after this one. Billy No Mates has some new friends, a new group, but he's the same dickhead. He is bigger and dumber than before. Of course, in reference to his muscle mass. And Taichi says that of all the factions in pro wrestling history, the United Empire is the lamest. They have no goal. They have Baldy, Fatty, the girl they are trying to make famous, and the idiot Zack will beat tomorrow. Gosh. Osprey hears all of the taunts, I suppose, and he reminds Zack who took the British title from him. He thinks Zack's going soft. Cobb says it took 3 Bullet Club guys to beat him, and he needs to bring order to New Japan. And Khan backs Osprey to win. The next match was Bushi, Naito, and Sonata versus Sho, Okada, and Nagata. Sho thinks he is closing in on a win, goes for the shock arrow on Sonata, but that's countered into the skull end. He re-secures the same hold badly with the backflip off the middle turnbuckle takes Sho to the ground, and Sonata finishes him by submission there. Not a lot of promos after this one. Nagata just says, "See you tomorrow" to Sonata. Jay White, Fale, Evil versus Tanahashi, Hanare, and Juice. Hanare's doing well against Evil until White intervenes and sets up Evil for Everything is Evil and takes the victory. Jay gives Tanahashi his proposition about lying down in person, but he does it in a rather unagreeable way. So backstage, Hanare thinks about putting his fist through a window, but he holds himself back, decides against it. Just really frustrated with how he's going at the moment. Of course, taking the pinfall again. Tanahashi thinks Jay is wrapped around his finger. He thinks his abs are coming back. He sticks out his belly. It's kind of funny. Juice is still plugging the Impact title match. He does the math and figures that the match is about 12 hours away, so with a smile he says he better get on a plane to Nashville right now. I don't know when that one was taped, but White sticks his belly out too, only to mock Tanahashi though. He says Tanahashi, who he and Gato call Fat Boy, faces the greatest wrestler alive in 2 nights, and the man will go on, and that man will go on to end the tyrant Kota Ibushi. And then Evil says that he's not worried about Yano's tricks, bringing us to more second round matches. Kenta versus Suzuki. This is kind of started a bit funny. Kenta's reading the newspaper while waiting for Suzuki's entrance, because it does take a while. It's got that long intro before he even walks out. But he goes wandering away when Suzuki enters the ring, so Suzuki tries baiting Kenta back in with the paper, and eventually it works, and we're off. Suzuki counters a GTS into a single leg crab. There's a really stiff open hand strike exchange that is rather extended and happens a few times. Suzuki slips on a sleeper, then continues with his strikes on a woozy Kenta, only to have the Gotch-style pole driver countered straight into the GTS for the victory. Didn't have a lot to say to this one, but it was a pretty straightforward match in that, you know, they were just slapping the crap out of each other, which was good. Not a bad one, but Kenta advances here to face the winner of the next match. After the match, Suzuki didn't want the goofy Kenta, he wanted the Kenta that showed up tonight, and he wants to hit him some more. Kenta wins again, so backstage with the fat cameraman, he recognizes his presence, but he says, "It's not because you were here, it's because of my own ability." Kenta says it's his birthday. He asks the cameraman if he knew. The cameraman says yes, or he nods. Kenta asks him, "Well, did you get me a gift then?" The cameraman says no. Kenta won't waste his time then. He'll go study his next opponent and consider what it means to be in his 40s. I think he's asking a lot for the guy he keeps calling fat and kind of abusing to get him a birthday gift, but maybe that would have improved relations. The main event was Shingo Takagi versus Hiroki Goto. They start brawling around the ring, but it soon becomes a meat-slapping battle in the ring, if you don't mind me describing it that way. Get your mind out of the gutter. Yeah, they just blast on each other. Oh, that's not much better, is it? They strike each other with their bones, and they've got a similar goal in that they're kind of trying to prove to the other wrestler which one's truly tougher. Shingo takes his least favorite move, the Ushigoroshi, but he gives as good as he gets with a Made in Japan, and there's the Last of the Dragon attempt that's forward off. The forearms fire again with Goto coming off second best this time. Shingo takes too wide a swing though, and Goto counters with a GYW. A reverse GTR follows and earns a 2 count, but the next attempt is turned into a roll-up by Shingo for a 2 count of his own. Last of the Dragon resisted once again, and after the struggle, Shingo improvises with a GTR of his own. Then the pumping bomber lands next with full force, but still Goto survives, not for much longer. Last of the Dragon does come soon. He pulls it off. Pinfall. Shingo Takagi advances. And will face Kenta. After this one, Shingo calls this revenge for his never title loss. Goto talks a lot of nonsense. This is still Shingo. He says Goto talks a lot of nonsense, but he is as tough as ever. He wants to go out in Nagoya, but the restaurants all close at 9. He thanks the fans for coming out to witness him take one step closer to a Bushi. And, of course, this is on the mic. I didn't recognize. But this is Shingo on the mic after the match. And he stares down the barrel of the camera. He tells Ibushi that he's coming for his neck. Pretty cool line. And then backstage he admits it was another close match and that Goto's top-notch. He notes his Takagi-style GTR and says his moves are like your smartphone. They update. Kenta is next. That'll be good. And he saw his own match. This is still Shingo. He saw his own match with Tanahashi from January. One of the all-time great never title matches. And he said, while it was a good match, it's only winning that matters, and that's what he cares about. He knows the fans care about the match quality, but, he wants to be winning. So Shingo will go to sleep on his own when he faces Kenta. He won't be getting put to sleep. 14th of March in Amagasaki Memorial Park Gymnasium. Opener, Yano, Yoshi, Ishii versus Kid, Suji, and Finley. And of course, Finjuice beat Gallows and Anderson. I think it aired the night before this event. The 13th. It was the night of the 13th. So, Finjuice are now the Impact Champions. They beat Gallows and Anderson. The Good Brothers, I believe they're called. I'm not sure when that one was taped, but it went out on it was a pay-per-view, I believe, or at least, a proper event. I think maybe it was on their streaming service. I don't think it was actual pay-per-view, but unsurprisingly, Finley has not been hiding the belt in his bag since whenever that was taped, so he doesn't wear it out to the ring for this one. And Yano just mucks around with the young lions. Ishii, on the other hand, takes a bit of a beating, actually, at the hands of the young lions, but he knocks down Suji with a lariat, and that's the finish. Suji wants Naito, but he keeps getting beat. He recognizes. Finley celebrates his title win, recognizing that he doesn't have the title belt before, quickly moving on and talking about beating Yoshi. Amora just says he has to get stronger. Yoshi recognizes, a lot of recognizing going on, the title win of Finley, but he is a team champion, and tomorrow is a singles match anyway. Or that they're both team. He's like, yeah, I get it. You're a team champion. I'm a team champion. Tomorrow we're facing in a singles match, so it doesn't matter. Next match, Kenta, Owens, Vale versus Doki, Suzuki, and Taichi. There's an awful lot of elbows exchanged between Kenta and Suzuki, so Suzuki is still very interested in Kenta despite having lost their match. But Owens picks up the win here with a package pile driver on Doki. Don't run, Kenta. Excuse me. Suzuki isn't satisfied, is what he says. And Owens comes in to say he's the best Texas heavyweight champion of all time. Kenta wonders where the fatty went. And he calls out Mizuki, which is how Okada mispronounced Suzuki's name apparently. Asks him why he's mad, because he already lost. Show him something new. Shingo Takagi's next, or Shikagi Tango, as he speculates Okada might call him, Kenta. So he can't stand Tango, he says, despite not knowing him well. He just seems to think Shingo thinks that he's better than others, and that he's probably shallow. And he doesn't like that he calls himself the Dragon, even though he has in his name Hawk, which is Taka. Takagi, Taka is Hawk. So he's like, well, why would you call yourself the Dragon when you've got Hawk in your name? It's like being called a Jack Russell and saying, my name is Cat. Lastly, he talks about seeing someone you know. This is his non sequitur. Seeing someone you know, but you don't know them well, and you see them coming toward you and you don't know how to act. As in, you're not sure if you should stop and say hi or just kind of give him a smile or just look away. And he just seems troubled by this scenario. Next match, Bushi, Naito, Takagi versus Sho, Okada, Goto. Bushi takes a shock arrow in this one, so that puts Sho 2-1 up over Bushi on this tour. And Sho really celebrates this one. He's up on the turnbuckles. Shingo, after the match, fought Kenta once back in the day and got sent to the hospital with the go to sleep. All he cares about is winning. Goto is upset, and while he accepts defeat, he wants a rematch. Sho says that this is his last day on the tour and he's happy with how it ended, so that's why he celebrated a little bit longer. He's going to go home for a little while. Jay White, Yujiro, and Evil took on Tanahashi, Hanare, and Juice. White challenges Tana to a pose down, and then as soon as he puts his arms up, he takes a grab at his flab. How rude. Tanahashi is clearly self-conscious about it. It motivates Tanahashi to get up top and fly high, high fly, flow on Yujiro, high fly flow on Yujiro, and he won. White gives himself a strength test, doing kind of like dips on one foot or on each foot, and he passes his own test. He says he's in better shape than Tana has ever been. White is still ascending while Tanahashi is descending. He looks forward to Yoshi and Finley in the next round. He recognizes Finley's recent title win, but he's surprised that he made it through the first round, and he'd be even more surprised to see him win again. Hanare enters and still feels defeated. Tanahashi comes in and says that he usually looks like this, and he can't, like, as in his current body shape, which he's carrying a little extra. But he says he can tighten up a little, and watching his progress will be enjoyable. He says that Jay reminds him of himself, showing off how good he looks. You know, he remembers doing a lot of that. And he says it won't be the new J-Pan Cup. When he locks in the cloverleaf, it will be the new J-Pan Tap. And then he laughs to himself at how bad that was. Bringing us to more second round matches. This one is Sonata versus Yujinagata. They do the technical stuff at the beginning, but Sonata's not really interested in being an old age charity, so he stuffs Nagata on the outside with a pile driver. Just nasty. On the outside of the ring, I mean by that. So on the mat, but still. Bumps his head on the concrete. Not deterred though, Nagata fights back with strikes and a very pretty butterfly suplex in lieu of an exploder when that doesn't work. But the exploder comes later, though it is no-sold, basically, by Sonata, who hits a TKO straight away. The subsequent moonsault misses and they go back up on the turnbuckle, and Nagata is successful with an avalanche exploder suplex. Then the Nagata Lock 2 is cranked on for a considerable amount of time before Sonata finally flicks his foot out for a rope break. The skull end goes on, but Nagata escapes quicker. It goes back on later and Nagata begins to fade. Sonata goes to the turnbuckle and lands a less than perfect moonsault for the victory. I mean, Nagata's actions made sense in this one. He's kind of just, you know, the tough old dude who's still chasing success, but I don't really know what the story was meant to be from Sonata's perspective. Like, he's just cocky and complacent, I suppose. But I mean, the fact that the pile driver on the outside, what was that about? If he was cocky, I don't know. I didn't follow whatever story was supposed to be going on in this one, and it took away from it for me. But after the match, Nagata says he won't stop wrestling until he beats Sonata. But there's no comment from the winner. And our main event, this is a goodie. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Will Osprey. And it just starts a million miles a minute. There's a couple of big dives and an Ozcutter attempt within 20 seconds. Zack tries slowing things down to his pace. Osprey's response is to get a little nastier with his offense, but that's a dangerous game to play against Sabre, particularly when Osprey has that target on his shoulder in the form of medical tape. It's the obvious tactic, and Zack begins to hone in on it, that shoulder, with various holds. They move into the third act of the match with big moves starting to flow both ways. And it's only 15 minutes in. There's an Oz cutter that lands for 2. A Stormbreaker's attempted and reversed into a pin. As far as I can tell, because Osprey busts his nose open. And I think it was on a La Mystica that Zack hit him with. And I think Osprey just didn't get his arms or hands down in time to brace. And he just took the full force of the fall with his face on the mat and busted his... You didn't see the blood until Zack hits a Zack driver, and then I think Osprey kicks out of that, and Zack instantly transitions into a triangle, and then you can just see blood on Zack's arms and stuff. And then, yeah, when Osprey manages to lift Zack up, he lifts him up onto the turnbuckle to get him off, but then ends up being thrown down, or thrown off the turnbuckle into an armbar, which was pretty cool. But this is when you can actually see that, yeah, Osprey's face is actually pretty covered in blood. So Zack completely winds him up on the mat, and with all his every limb being taken and pulled on, and the crowd are gasping as the British champion is contorted in several directions until finally making it to the ropes. It looks like a kick cracks Osprey right on the nose again, but he fires up and fights on. The elbow pad comes off, but Zack counters. They trade kicks. An Oz cutter is countered. Zack driver countered into the Chelsea grin, which is that spinning back elbow to the back of the head. He's doing that now instead of the hidden blade, it seems. And then the Stormbreaker that follows after the Chelsea grin. That's what ends the contest. And what a contest it was. This was a really good match. There were multiple elements to it. I mean, there's the discrepancy in pace between the two fighters, the pace they wanted to fight at. The newly turned bad guy realizing that he wasn't on the same level as Nasty, or level of Nasty as his opponent. Because he tried to, start kind of cheating and using the elements and doing that kind of stuff with Zack. And Zack's like, okay, you want to play that game? I know it better than you, kid. And then there's just, Zack's realization that neither the pace of the match nor these dirty tactics are going to keep one of the great modern submission experts away from his shoulder. So basically, he just goes back to being a great wrestler himself. And also becomes a really gutsy performance because of the damage done to his face with a considerable amount of the match left. So really good match. A true challenge from Zack as well for Will, but both men really showed themselves capable of a main event match, and brutality was the end result. And for the aftermath, Red Shoes ties a cloth around Osprey's possibly broken nose to cover up the blood. Taichi tends to his fallen tag partner. And that's it for Suzuki-gun in the New Japan Cup. He was the final hope, but Osprey advances to face Sonata in the quarterfinals. Osprey lifts the cloth to speak into the microphone after the match in the ring to the crowd. He deserves a round of applause and he demands it, and then leads a chant of his own name. He says he's the greatest British wrestler that has ever lived, and everyone should put their New Japan Cup bets on him. Backstage, Taichi says that they've gained something more valuable than the New Japan Cup. They will become a tag team again. Zack agrees. Taichi helps him up. Zack, he's out of it. He pants a quick "fuck you, Osprey" on his way out. Osprey is hiding all the blood from all the children that look up to him, he says. He says B will be devastated if his nose is broken and he needs reconstructive surgery because he's so handsome. Next event, the 15th. Korakuen Hall. A return to the 17 fans in Korakuen Hall. Kenta, Ishimori, and Jado took on Doki, Suzuki, and Desperado. Despi's back. Normal mask. And Doki gets another shot at Jado here. It's a throwaway line from Kelly that I noted, but he's like, maybe Doki and Jado can have a cinematic match. And I just thought that was funny. Jado toys with Doki in this one, really. I mean, it's kind of odd that he really has Doki's number like this. But when Despi gets a hold of Jado, he makes him squeal with the numero dos. That's the finish. Suzuki and Kenta are too busy clobbering each other outside the ring to interfere. So that's how that one went. Ishimori after the match said that he saw those 2 titles on Despi, and he subtly suggests that figures into his plans on this tour. Kenta finds Fatty there. Again, he talks about Suzuki being obsessed and stalking him. Kenta saw Shingo's comments about sending him to the hospital, and he says he will relive that pain. That Shingo will relive that pain. Suzuki takes Kenta saying it's over as the opposite. It's far from over, says Mizuki. Despi says that he almost got killed and the referees need to pull it together. And then he wants to call out Gato and Jado. But Doki sees it coming and he tries to stop him. He's like, I've been begging for that match for ages. And Despi kind of, I don't know, I forget what he said to him exactly, but he basically just tells him to piss off, and Doki's laughing about it. Suzuki Gun are the best on promos. It just seems so natural, you know, but they're naturally entertaining. Yeah, Despi and Doki, that's a fun tag team. I don't know. I feel like if Kanemaru's ready to hang the boots up, not saying he should, but these two are a funny little tag team. And anyway, so yeah, Despi just ignores Doki. He's like, shut up. Continues his challenge. He says, you know, it shouldn't just be the challenges. He doesn't want to just be fielding challenges. He is the champion. He wants to challenge Gato and Jado. A classic junior heavyweight tag team, of course, one of the all-times. And he says that Togo can even jump in as a substitute if they want. Togo once took the junior tag titles from Gato and Jado as a freelancer. At least once. Back in 2007. You can hear about it on my historical podcasts, which are coming up. I know I keep saying it next week. I'm pretty sure next week I have to do it because there's nothing else on. I'm going to finish off New Japan Cup midweek, you know, whenever I can find the time to do it. I've got a busy week actually, but hopefully I can do it. I probably won't do it Sunday night, but probably Monday night I'll get it out. Hopefully. I digress. That was the end of that one. Great Khan, Jeff Cobb, Will Osprey take on Kanemaru, Taichi, and Zack Sabre Jr. So Kanemaru's back. Not quite as exciting as Despi. No offense, Nobu. Osprey is looking a little purple and puffy in the face, and he's not happy about it. Him and Zack continue their match from last night, but the finish is Cobb hitting the Tour of the Islands on Kanemaru. So, welcome back, bud. After the match, Taichi points out that Zack lost the battle to win the war. Just look at Osprey's face. He says that, again, they have gained something more valuable from this tournament than winning it. They talked it over. They've agreed. They're going to come back as a tag team. Zack and Taichi, they're coming back as a tag team. They'll be stronger than ever. Taichi suggests a drink, and Zack ardently agrees. Off for a whiskey they go. Osprey says his nose is broken, and it should be a disqualification if he hits hit in the face. Cobb's goal, once again, is order in New Japan. Khan wonders how Suzuki Gun can call themselves a gang. He says Taichi is so arrogant, and he tells Bushi to watch his back. There are many ways to skin a cat, and he doesn't need to win the New Japan Cup. Bushi, Sonata, and Takagi took on Taguchi, Nagata, and Goto. It's an automatic... It's an atomic... No, it's not. It's an atomic. No, it's not. Are you serious? It's an atomic drop from Sonata on Taguchi that gains complaints. after the Japanese leg roll clutch ends the contest via pinfall. Taguchi feeling that his funky weapon, well, perhaps his front funky weapon, rather than his rear funky weapon, was illegally harmed in the atomic drop. But referee had none of it. Pinfall stands. Taguchi waddles backstage, harmed. Nagata's frustrated. Goto is motivated. Shingo is interrupted by Kenta. He remembers a small fish that looked just like Shingo. This is Kenta saying so. And he brings up his point about Takagi having Hawk in his name and calling himself the Dragon. And Shingo looks genuinely called out for a moment. He's like, stop messing with me. It's a really funny interaction. Shingo says something about Kenta being a dog. Like that's something to do with his name. Calls himself Fang. But he's... I don't know. I didn't really get that. I saw someone that probably knows Japanese better than me comment on it. And I think it's... like the kanji. One of the symbols is the same as dog. And Kenta kind of calls him out. Like, no, you're misspelling that or missaying that. Or I'm sure it's something that would have been even funnier if you didn't need the subtitles, if you could just understand them in Japanese. But I'm not quite there yet. That brings us to more second round matches. Yoshihashi versus David Finley. And this was a match. This match took place as the semi-main event. There was a Kumagoroshi, that the fisherman buster that he kind of sits out on. That's Yoshi's best move, and I really like it. But stupid Finley does a stupid kick out, and then Karma's reversed into a stunner, which is done pretty smoothly in fairness. But then he goes for his dumb finish and actually wins the match. That like sliced bread kind of finish. Or the like sliced bread, it's like a Spike Dudley finish. Like he goes up the turnbuckle and then into a stunner. Anyway, so yeah, Finley advances to the quarterfinals. I forgot to talk about my picks, but I lost straight away because I picked Khan and Yano advanced. But Finley in the quarterfinals, I didn't pick this one either. He's in the quarterfinals of a tournament that involves real wrestlers, and hopefully gets squashed by whoever wins the next match. Kevin Kelly says that he recovered from a torn labia as a young lion. He said labia. I'm pretty sure he said labia. All the best with your labia in the next round, Finley. So he will face the winner of the next... the comments after the match here. Yoshi was looking forward to facing Tanahashi when he saw the bracket, but Finley was strong today. He's upset, but he won't give up. He would like to face Finley again. Finley yells. He always yells. He would like to beat Jay. Yeah, kid, and I'd like a holiday home in San Sebastian. So, Jay White versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. Kelly suggests Tana got fat to make Jay complacent. That's brave. Can that be my excuse as well? Jay certainly thinks he won the pose down with ease. He tells Tanahashi to lie down and let Jay save both of their legacies. So Tanahashi slowly complies, but of course as soon as Jay gets close enough, he quickly rolls him up. White's anger manifests itself in violence and aggression. Tanahashi takes advantage of Jay losing his cool by keeping his, but then Jay goes after Suji, and that's what lures Tanahashi in successfully. He has a go at Kid as well, just presumably for fun. White stays on top with more general nastiness, but Tanahashi finds some favour with a low drop kick and a dragon screw. White tries a dragon screw of his own, but Tanahashi refuses and instigates a fighting spirit forearm sequence. Tanahashi's winning until Jay changes the rules, goes back to grappling, and isn't afraid to use the hair to make it happen. The Kiwi Crush is countered into a twist and shout. They trade dragon screws, but Tana goes one up and then locks in the cloverleaf. White makes it out himself, but that's when Gato gets involved, though Tana had him scouted. He goes back to Jay after knocking out Gato and hits the sling blade before going up top. White hits the top rope, unbalancing Tanahashi. There's a Blade Runner that's countered into a straight jacket German suplex for 2. There's another cloverleaf attempt that's defended through Jay thumbing, gouging at Tanahashi's eyes. There's a Blade Runner countered again, this time into an inside cradle for 2, then another Dragon Screw, then White reverses that, countering the Dragon Screw into the Blade Runner. It was a cool counter, a cool finish. Tanahashi, actually, when he had the leg for the Dragon Screw, kind of gave White a bit of a taunting wave, and you could say it was that touch of cockiness that could have done him in. Kelly may have been right about Tanahashi trying to lull Jay into a false sense of security, but when Tanahashi had the advantage, he thought he had him, and he couldn't help himself. He couldn't stick to the game plan. The old showman in him came out, and Jay, of course, just as sharp as ever, finds that tiny bit of space, bit of room to move, and takes full advantage of it. So Jay advances to face David Finley. Good match, that one. I mean, obviously, like I said, it kind of had that Tanahashi veteran, cool, calm, collected, right until the end. When, it probably was the fact that on Jay's end, he was just trying to rile Tanahashi up. From, pinching at his fat in the warm-up matches to during this match, hitting Suji and throwing Tanahashi around on the outside, and all this kind of using the hair, all this kind of stuff, getting under his skin. And maybe that's what happened when Tanahashi had the advantage. He was like, he wanted to rub it in a little bit, and that's what cost him. So yeah, good match, that one. Jay told Tanahashi to lie down to save everyone from the crazy man Bushi. This is him after the match speaking to the fans. He mockingly congratulates Finley for his tag win before comparing his career. Oh jeez. Before comparing his career to erectile dysfunction. Oh man. He asked Tanahashi for the never belt because anything looks good around White's waist. That'd be an interesting one. White going for the never belt. Tanahashi won't give up, but he's very clearly disappointed. And White is carried in by Amora and Kid, not due to any fatigue or injury, just due to ego. Amora seems to be struggling with it a bit more than Kid is, and Jade's berating him for not holding him up properly, but that's the end of that one. Moving on to the 16th. I think there's this is the final 2 here. An hour in. Still in Korakuen Hall, Amora, Kid and Suji took on Tenzan, Nagata and Kojima. Youngsters versus dads. Kid hits a brainbuster on Nagata that wasn't far off, but he can't hit the butterfly suplex that he tries to go to next, and gets a bit too cute with a pose, leading to an exploder. Tenzan removes Suji, who broke up that pin, and Nagata finishes Kid with the Nagata Lock 2. Suji backstage says Tokyo Sports and the weekly pro wrestling magazines have both backed Suji's campaign to face Naito in a singles match, as well as the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Kota Ibushi himself has also shared his Twitter post and backs him to get that match. So Suji says he won't give up. Kid's been watching old matches for inspiration, and he wants to defeat Nagata. I think he brought up a Shibata and Nagata match or something like that he liked. Amora wants to defeat them all. Nagata says he can sense their desperation from these kids, but that it's not enough to beat them. Kojima says that they have the gods of pro wrestling behind them, and the young guys will have, or that they do have, a lot to learn. Hanare, Juice, and Finley versus Vale, Owens, and White. Jay tries messing with Dave, but Finley has him scouted early on. You can tell they know each other pretty well. And the finish to this one, I mean, there it is again. Jay is just trying to get under these guys' skin, because that could be the difference. They could try to rub it in with a little wave, hesitate, pause, and that's bang. when Jay strikes. But it was Vale that struck in this one. On Hanare, the two of them, Vale and Owens, tried that grenade launcher that they came up with, the move they came up with in the tag league, but Hanare got out of that, so it was just a plain grenade that ended up finishing him. Finley thinks White doesn't take him seriously, and he can't blame him given their record, but Finley believes the man Jay White beat has died, and this Finley has risen in his place. He envies White's success, but he believes that he's better than him, and he yells about that for a couple of minutes. Hanare is yelling too, but he says, after nothing but pain and defeat for 5 years, what has he got to show for it? He's freaking out. Jay did not expect to be facing Finley, but for the 13th time in a row, by his count, White will win. He will win the Japan Cup, and he will win the IWJP title. Next one was Cobb and Osprey taking on Bushi and Sonata. Osprey begs Sonata not to hit him in the face before the match, and Sonata calmly agrees, in kind of a like, okay dude, fine, kind of a way. And he complies, really, for most of the match, but Osprey's not interested in playing by the rules, so Sonata ends up giving him a well-earned lesson, grabbing his nose, kind of giving him a slap in the face. Meanwhile, though, the tour of the islands, surprise, surprise, Bushi takes the fall. Will is more worried about his nose than the match, though. He yells at Sonata, he calls him a liar, and he's like in his face through the ropes. Sonata's on the outside, Osprey looking at him through the ropes from in the ring, and Sonata just slowly raises his middle finger right in Osprey's face. That's a funny dynamic, those two, because Osprey's really over the top, like you would not want to be around that guy. He's just loud and obnoxious, and Sonata's a complete opposite, and just that was just perfect. Osprey's just going on, talking his rubbish, and just a slow unfurling of that middle finger right in Osprey's angry red face. Red and blue and black it is at the moment. So in the backstage comments here, Sonata, in English, just stops by to say that he does not care about Osprey's face. Osprey enters and, of course, is irate about the gentleman's agreement being breached. Cobb says he isn't going to yell. He hasn't got any witty lines. He just has one goal, and that is the New Japan Cup, which he is not a part of anymore. He didn't say that part. He just said that's his goal, the New Japan Cup. You're not in the New Japan Cup, Jeff Cobb. Oh, but then he says if Osprey wins, that they all win. So he's piggybacking. Quarterfinals. Oh, quarterfinal time. Did these get done in just 2 matches? Or 2 cards? I guess, yeah, there's only 4 matches, right? 8 guys, 4 matches. Alright, so Evil and Yano was the first one. And isn't this just guaranteed to be a classic? Fuck me. Yano uses the spray. Oh, yeah. I just noticed this. I don't know how long he's been doing it. Or maybe he does it here and there. Or maybe this is the first time. But I just noticed that when the referee was doing his pat down, Yano uses that disinfectant spray. Like, you know, I've seen him before, you know, make the referee wash his hands. Like, I've seen that. But he kind of really fought the referee away with it. Like, he just kind of... The referee didn't really give him much of a pat down. And I just thought that that was a funny, interesting little way of him telling the referee to piss off because, of course, he's got stuff hidden in his pants. Well, he usually does. Let's see. So in this one, Yano leaves the ring at first, and he demands that Togo leave before he's to re-enter. So the referee actually enforces this, but straight away, as soon as Togo gets down off the apron, he begins to count out. So he's not really interested in mucking around, and good on him. So Yano gets back in, and Evil throws him out right to Togo, who puts the boots to him. So that didn't do him a lot of good, asking Yano out. And the match finally gets going once Yano returns to the ring via Togo. And, I mean, as much of a match as it is, when it goes back outside of the ring, it's at Yano's behest this time. He knocks the choky chain from Togo's hands and uses it on Evil. The referee is looking at anything other than the participants in this match, so he gets away with it. Yano throws Evil under the ring and leaves him under there to be counted out. But then, this was kind of fun. I think it got to 18, and then the lights went out. And of course, the referee... You know what? I was about to make fun of it, but in fairness, the referee should not continue the count if he can't confirm that the player, the fighter, the wrestler is actually still outside of the ring. So he can't see. He can't see that Evil's outside of the ring. So in fairness, he would have to stop the count. So it's black for a while, I don't know, 5-10 seconds. And then the lights come back, and Evil's standing behind Yano. And Yano turns around and is hit straight away. Everything is Evil. And for a moment, I was like, wow, is Evil going a little further toward the Undertaker gimmick? I mean, at this point, any change in Evil is a good thing. So I was kind of excited. But then walking back with a big grin on his face was Togo, walking back to the ring. Because much more realistically, he found the light switch and used it to his advantage. So... I mean, it's the match you expect the match to be, I guess, but at least they generally, for what they are, they're kind of creative. I can appreciate that. You know what? It's not my least favorite Evil match, that's for bloody sure, because it's pretty quick and it's kind of just silly. So all the silly stuff that he does, I don't mind it as much because, you know, I mean, I wouldn't want Evil being a comedy wrestler, but it'd be, again, like, that'd be better than what he's doing now, just because what he's doing now is it's ruining what should be really good matches, and they're proper matches. They're supposed to be serious matches. So, we'll get more of that. Evil's in the semi-final. There were no promos after that one. The main event was Shingo Takagi versus Kenta. And of course, due to Evil's success, could be an all Bullet Club semi-final on this side of the bracket. It's a slow start to this one, but Shingo gets it going to just kind of by inviting some Kenta kicks, only to counter and then with a slam, but Kenta rolls away. Again, Shingo tries to keep the match moving, but this time after exiting, Kenta grabs the ring bell and pops Shingo in the head with that. So now Kenta he's interested in interacting. He does a good job at neutralizing Shingo for the next chunk of the match, which, as far as storytelling goes, is good, but honestly, as far as the recent Shingo matches go, and in terms of entertainment, it kind of struggles. In fairness, of course, that's a really high bar, but, you know, yeah, it was alright for a while, and then Shingo makes his comeback, including a similar little kick to the head that Kenta's famous for, that, you know, when he jumps over him and kind of pops him in the face. He doesn't do it like that, but he kind of does something similar to that. And then Kenta hits him with a DDT, and Shingo just stays there. Just stays there with his head on the mat, and Kenta's still there. And then all of a sudden, Kenta realizes that he's the one being held, and Shingo lifts him up from the mat, deadlift, and throws him all the way over with a suplex. That was pretty cool. I haven't seen that before. Kenta grabs or gains back the advantage going for the game over, but Shingo scrambles away from that one. The dropkick in the corner lands. The double foot stop does not, though. So, but there's still he still maintains momentum. Kenta, he hits a draping DDT before a successful double foot stomp for 2. Made in Japan is counted into game over. That's locked in. Shingo manages to scrape his leg to the ropes for the break, though, and you can tell at this point Shingo's really he's low energy. Kenta's done a really good job of grinding him down, but Shingo pops back up from a tiger suplex and pounds Kenta with a clothesline, and then a forearm battle follows to try and wake Shingo up, There's a main in Japan that ends in a 2 count. Shingo's... Oh, that ends the forearm battle. It goes for made in Japan. Shingo's left arm is in trouble because of how the game over was secured earlier. It was kind of twisted up. But he hulks up. He clashes into Kenta again. Though now it's Kenta who stands strong. So they're striking again. It's won in devastating fashion with a knee from Kenta. Followed by the Boo Psycho knee for 2. Goto sleeps attempted but is caught and countered into a pop-up DVD. Pumping Bomber could have easily finished it, but Kenta still has a bit of life left until moments later when Last of the Dragon finally keeps him down. So, revenge for the chat about his name being wrong, I suppose, from Shingo. This one took a while to get going, but it was pretty good, in hindsight, despite the bell shot. So Shingo Takagi faces Evil in the first semi-final of the 2021 New Japan Cup. After the match, Shingo says he just wants to talk a little. He thinks the New Japan Cup's actually tougher than the G1. He acknowledges his next opponent, who invites himself to the ring. Shingo asks that the fans applaud Evil on his way out, and then he asks if he has something to say or if he's going to do something. But Togo low blows Shingo from behind, and they both put the boots to Shingo. Evil picks him up, and he and Togo together give Shingo the Magic Killer. And then Evil takes the mic and says that he talks too much. He's out of line, and Evil will go back-to-back as New Japan Cup champion. Backstage, Kenta blames the cameraman for his loss. He hopes that the cameraman doesn't tweet about him, because they aren't in a relationship, and he doesn't want to be followed. Kenta acknowledges revenge has been dealt, but he also got his own revenge on Suzuki. That revenge, of course, he's referring to is Shingo was talking about how he lost a match to Kenta way back when in Noah. I assume it was in Noah. And so Kenta wishes Jay and Evil well for Bullet Club in the tournament, and he ends it with saying that Yoshihashi's ugly. That's awful. And then Evil says that he sent Yano into the abyss. He has said his piece to Takagi. He will seize the title from Bushi and change its name. And that leads us to the final card of the quarterfinals. Twin Messe Shizuoka. Opener was Amora versus Gabriel Kid in a singles match. Gabe took this one with a butterfly suplex and afterwards says he's back on track. But he comments on the pathways of Amora and Suji. He says he wants to see them go on excursion. He thinks they deserve it. He admits he might be out of line in saying so, but he wants to move up too. He feels like he's proven his worth. So once again, he wants something else. He wants to go on excursion now. He wants to go on excursion. He wants to go to the LA dojo. He wants to stay in New Japan. He wants to go to Britain and spread British wrestling. 100 goals this kid has. Next match was Khan and Cobb versus Suji and Nagata. Suji throws some big ground and pound elbows on Khan, but Khan catches one of them, nearly gets an armbar, then jumps on top himself and lands some big elbows and does some claw choking. The match goes a while longer, but Suji ends up taking the eliminator. Backstage, Nagata tells Khan to try and beat him rather than Suji, and we'll meet him again soon. Suji reflects on the United Empire offer back when... at the start of the tournament. He said he turned it down because he didn't want to fight dirty, but having seen Khan beat Naito, he thinks maybe he would have had his chance at Naito if he did join. Having said that, he does not regret the decision. He'll find his own way. He just needs 21,000 more likes on Twitter. Cobb asks the press if they watched the match. Cobb asked the press, the people there, the cameramen, the reporters, he asked them if they watched the match, that they are there to cover. He's better than his mates. Actually, he's not better than Khan, he's better than Osprey. Because at least he's funny bad, is my opinion. At least he's funny bad. He says that he will deliver, or the Empire will deliver order to New Japan. This is his new thing, that New Japan needs order. Which, I mean, I actually I don't disagree with that. I doubt we have the same idea of order, but anyway, Khan lets Suji in on a little secret. that even if he had have turned on Tanahashi, they still would not have welcomed him into the United Empire. He also addresses rumours that Ibushi's not in a good state of mind. I haven't heard about that. Khan says he should just relinquish the title to Osprey and then face the penalty for lowering the value of New Japan. Khan used to be his only mate. He was the only one defending him, and now he's kind of against him too. So I suppose that's Ibushi's issue, that everyone's against him. Next match was Kenta and Bad Luck Fale versus Hanare and Juice Robinson. And Hanare seems to be there to get beat up, but if you've been paying attention to his promos, he is proper fed up with this. He dodges a grenade in this when he kicks Fale in the head. He begins a short comeback, but it ends with a grenade just a couple minutes later anyway. And what's interesting about this one is, like I was about to say, so Hanare, he's been really passionate, emotional, disappointed, frustrated, angry in his post-match promos. And he's really losing the plot. And he loses again here. And Juice just walks straight out. He's clearly pretty unimpressed. But he's jumping off the apron as the third hand count comes down. Doesn't check on Hanare, doesn't help him out of the ring or anything, just goes, all right, we lost, bye. And again, after this match, Hanare's he wonders how much further he needs to fall. And he wonders why Juice didn't stick around. And he thinks the fans weren't there for him either. I see how it is, he says. So, Hanare's there's always these guys that kind of get caught in these young lion spots. They've graduated, but they never actually get really any further than where they were as young lions. And that might be even more frustrating than Suji, Kid, and Uemura's position, where at least they have that light at the end of the tunnel where they're supposed to go on excursion or something. But Hanare's already done that. He's already graduated, and yet he just still isn't getting anywhere. And it seems he's realizing what I talked about with Suji and Tanahashi last week when I was talking about those first round matches, and how I just mentioned it before, how Khan was trying to lure Suji into turning on his mentor, and how that can benefit Suji. And I mean, like I said, he was just talking about it, how that could have benefited me. He's like, I could have got that match with Naito by now if I had joined. And it's sort of just, it when it builds like this, it makes a lot more sense. And I think it's stronger, because when you do WCW turns, and there's just guys turning on guys for seemingly no reason, and then after the fact just being like, well, this happened and this happened. But there was no real foreshadowing, so it's kind of shallow, and you just think, well, that guy's a dick. Why would he turn on him for that? Why didn't he talk about it? Or, it doesn't really make sense. It's not how people act. This is how people act. They slowly get ground down and frustrated and just until the point where they can't take anymore, and something has to happen, and you're at that stage where you feel like you've tried everything else and you've got no choice but to just do something drastic. And good people can do bad things when they're pushed into a corner. So where Hanare's headed, I'm not sure, but I like Hanare, and I would like to see him given a bit more meat on the bone, so to speak. Give him something to work with. Bullet Club is pretty full. He's obviously got that Kiwi connection with Jay. And, you know, I mean, the Polynesian boys, I'm sure, all get along. They're not from the same island, but cause I'm pretty sure Hanare is Maori. And, well, obviously, the Tongan, the other guys are Tongan. But other than that, I mean, the United Empire, I guess, is another option. I don't really see exactly where he fits in there. But, you know, at least that's more room to breathe rather than just being another guy. Suzuki-gun, I don't know if that really is a fit, but it'd be a good way to learn promos, being around those guys. Anyway, oh jeez, this is just as long as the last one. Let's move along here. I haven't even got to the main matches. Evil, Owens, and Ishimori face Bushi, Naito, and Takagi. While Takagi and Evo... let's start again. While Takagi and Evil and Togo keep each other busy, Bushi and Naito work in perfect sync to take out the other two. Naito finishes Owens with a Destino. Shingo and Evil exchange words for some time after the match. Evil tells Takagi not to step out of line when speaking to him. Shingo tells Evil enough of the cheap tricks. He knows he's capable of a proper match, and even if Evil doesn't want one, he should be ready. So, here we go. New Japan Cup quarter-final, Jay White versus David Finley. Finley keeps Jay White out of the main event. So, the history here, just quickly. David Finley started in New Japan a few months after Jay White, and a few months later they tagged together, or after tagging together a few times, they had their first match against one another. Or at least, the first match that I could find. It was the first and hopefully the last time Finley ever beat White. And on my count, there was 11 meetings, as per CageMatch.net, one of my favourite sites. Shout out! And it was about 3 years ago for the IWGP US title. Jay White, of course, retaining there. Kelly might have the same source because these guys have been talking about 12 wins. So that's 13 matches. And Kelly couldn't find a couple of those other matches either. They did work together in the UK before going to New Japan, so maybe it was an unreported match or two there. In any case, it's lopsided in Jay's favour. White tries to get under Finley's skin, and he laughs it off at first. And when his first go-to wind-up strategies don't work, he starts using the elements on the outside of the ring to gain the advantage instead. When the match returns to the ring, Finley tries to counter the onslaught, but Gato nips at his heels. Juice is at ringside blowing up, but he really should be able to manage that situation better. Gato later is a visual distraction for Finley, just allowing White a bit more time to recover, and once again Juice is absent there. It happens again, and more of an impact made this time from Gato. So, because as Finley entered the ring, I think Gato grabbed him, and finally Juice makes himself useful, carries Gato out of the arena on his shoulders. Jay maintains the advantage regardless of this, throwing a double leg crab on for old time's sake, the old young lion move. White strings together offense, but he looks a little lost without Gato, kind of looking to the back for advice that's usually at hand. And the hesitation allows Finley a chance back into the match in the form of a Blue Thunder bomb. He thinks about his finish, but instead is flung into the corner by Jay. They are at that stage of the match, trading attempts at their best moves, both aware of what's coming, or so it seemed. Prima Nocta, I think it's Prima Nocta, or I've heard it called the Acid Drop as well. I don't know if they're two different moves. But Finley's jobber Spike Dudley finish lands and pins Jay White out of nowhere. Finley gets in his face with "I told you so's," while Jay just looks shocked, and so am I. If he had a stronger looking finish, or a trickier finish, I think I would have liked this more. But Jay just going down to one of those moves doesn't make sense to me. I mean, they built the elements of complacency well. As a story, and psychologically speaking, it was a good match. I just think it's not like it doesn't look like a finish. It just made Jay look a bit weak that he got pinned by it, because it didn't really come off to me as. I mean, I get that it was a surprise, but he still could have kicked out and been surprised. Yeah. It was a good match, though. It's just Finley. Finley's move sucks is kind of the issue with it, I guess. Although I guess, it also, you could say, well, it's a stunner, and it's off the top rope. Is Stone Cold Steve Austin's finish weak, Jim? Huh? Whatever. Apparently 99% of people chose White to move forward in this match from the picks, and of course I was amongst them, so good for Finley, whatever my opinion of him may be. He advances to the semi-final to face the winner of the next match, but after this one, White collapses on his knees backstage, and he's speechless at first, and then confused, and he's almost trying to wake himself up. He begins laughing as he realizes that he actually lost to David Finley. He congratulates Finley on being able to surprise him, the 12-2 record that now stands, according to White's count. He thinks that doesn't matter. He's like, look, he's no longer. I guess the tournament's no longer the new Japan Cup. He's still kind of joking about it, but the funny side begins to fade, and White considers how this affects his legacy, or his picture of what his legacy is meant to be. He thinks that this is another wrong to correct, like he did with Ishii. Finley's back for some "I told you so's." He says that he beat Chase and Yoshi just like he said he did, or just like he said he would. But it's not like that's really quite as large a prediction as saying you beat White. He treats it like it is, and tells us, well, now you should believe him. He's winning the New Japan Cup. Well, he better bloody not. At least he kept his promo short, though. He didn't yell too much either, so not too bad. Will Osprey versus Sonata is the final match on this podcast here at a bloody hour and a half in. Jesus. Glad to see Osprey, or an Osprey-style opening to this match rather than a Sonata start. Osprey will want to keep it that way with his bad shoulder and bruised face, but he's not able to. Sonata even pulls Osprey's face up in the Paradise Lock, sending him face first into the turnbuckle pad with a drop kick. The match moves ahead quickly, with a Stormbreaker nearly the result of a counter. Then Osprey moves out of the way of a moonsault to hit a Spanish Fly. A Tiger Suplex the other way gains a 2 count. That's from Sonata. I don't know if I don't pay attention to Sonata matches enough, but is that Tiger Suplex new? Or relatively new? I don't remember him using that very much before. I do like a Tiger Suplex. Off the elbow pad comes at about 15 minutes in. Chelsea Grin was the idea, but Sonata spins out of the way. The Oz Cutter is trapped with the skull end, but Osprey was ready for that too at first. But then it's slapped back on after one of Sonata's superfluous backflips. Sonata takes him down, and Kelly notes the hold is on the side of the injured shoulder. Will goes out, and Sonata goes for the moonsault and lands on Osprey's knees. He goes for the Oz Cutter again, but this time is followed by Sonata, and it's counted into the Japanese leg roll clutch. They are just going move for move now. The Oz Cutter finally lands, but only for a 2 count. Chelsea Grin lands. Stormbreaker lands. Sonata falls. I looked up the Chelsea Grin stuff. It's or the Chelsea Smile. It started as the Glasgow Smile, or that's a pretty nasty looking. That's a nasty way to treat someone, isn't it? You like cut the sides of each. Well, I read it on Wikipedia. They said, well, you cut about an inch on each side at the corner of their mouth, and then you torture them so they scream, and then that makes their face rip open more. How awful's that? Jesus. Graphic. Sorry. I hope there's no kids listening. Or at least they're, strong-stomached kids. That's what the Joker from The Dark Knight has. A Chelsea grin. Not much of a look. Promo. Oh, you're clapping for me. You're clapping for me now, are you? Osprey's saying. I heard you clapping for Sonata. Because they've got different rhythms. It's like Osprey, Sonata. So sometimes it can be hard to tell which side the fans are on. But it was 3 claps to 2. Osprey's onto him. He knows they weren't cheering for him. He thinks he's the most talented wrestler alive. He will prove it again by beating White. Then he realizes Finley won. Then he starts laughing. He's like, that's a nice fairy tale. But this is real life, and Osprey will defeat him. The real test will be... the real test between these two will be a cringy promo battle. That's just my take. Backstage, Finley says... Osprey says that finally Finley's dad has something to be proud of his kid for. He says they're about the same age, but there's a large gap between them in accomplishments. He admits that he isn't that smart outside of wrestling, but he asks Finley, would it be worse to be that stupid, or be worse to be beaten by someone that stupid? And he's got a big grin on his face, like he's inferring that the loss would be worse, but there's no doubt in my mind that I would rather lose a single wrestling match and not be stupid. But, I mean, look, he admitted he was stupid before he posed the question, so give him a break. Speaking of giving people breaks, this post is already up on Reddit. I posted on Reddit about David Finley, because I have already watched the semi-finals, as I mentioned, and I'm not going to go into it now. But, I don't know, if you read that post and you listen to this, you might be kind of confused, because I was positive about Finley in that post. And, I've not been too positive here, have I? Because I wanted to represent myself properly. I write these notes as I watch the matches. That's how I felt about Finley then. And I didn't want to pretend that I knew all along that Finley is pretty friggin' good. Or at least he pulled off quite a performance. Like I said, that Jay White match was good. The next one coming, I was really impressed by. But look, I wanna be called out. I want to be called out for being a dummy and teasing him all this time, because there's more of a payoff that way, right? I was wrong. I'm not afraid to own that. Well, actually, you know what? I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. His promos are bad, and he is. Well, look, I described it in the post. He looks like a jobber. He acts like a jobber. He wrestles like a jobber. His promos are jobber promos, but he's a talented dude, man. He's a really talented guy. He's a good wrestler. But I'll leave it at that. That's to come shortly. Those matches, well, the semi-final matches have happened already, my time, but, everyone's time. We all live in the same dimension, I think. So, finals are tonight. I'm pumped. Pumped for it. Should be a cool card. I wonder if Suji gets Naito. But I'll come back and talk about the semi-finals and that final card then, because I've talked enough for today. Thank you very much for listening. I don't know where you're listening to this. Maybe it's YouTube. Maybe it's Spotify. Maybe it's one of the... Anchor is one of the other ones. But I'm going to put all the links everywhere. Not everywhere, sorry. Just in each of the posts. So wherever you listen to this, you can go find it somewhere else. Even though I've got a really ugly picture on YouTube that everyone hates and clicks out of, it's staying there for now. I'm just glad that I've got audio-only options that maybe look a bit more professional. And, hey, who knows? I might get a webcam and you can look at my stupid, ugly face as I do these things. Because I do them in one take anyway. I mean, not that it matters. I mean, you watch these YouTube kids and they can't get through a sentence without cutting the thing up 3 times. But not really my style. Not my style to have a bunch of followers. Kind of more my style to be a loser. But hey, that's me. Got to be yourself, right? Be yourself, everyone. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about what you thought of these matches. Comment on it. Wherever you're listening to it. I like hearing from you. So, thanks for that. Oh, and, if you like it, subscribe, but whatever. Thanks for listening. Until next time, have a good one.